This is not an anti-Mormon video. I have a testimony of the restored gospel, and this is my story. 2 years ago, I wanted to understand why people were leaving the church. Growing up, I thought anti-Mormon material was nothing but exaggerated stories from unreliable sources. But with each story I heard, and each piece of history I read, I realized that most of the information was true. There was nothing anti about it. It was just history. I developed sincere empathy for people who left the church. Many of their reasons were valid, and their decision to leave was heartbreaking for both them and their families. So the question is, why would they leave? See, we often say, if the Book of Mormon is true, then Joseph Smith was a prophet, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is also true. But there are parts of our history which challenge the validity of these three things. And I think it's time we finally talk about it. Let's not be afraid of this information anymore. We might fear the path it takes to gain an understanding of this information, but as we cast out fear, we allow our faith to flourish. I'm here to bring an understanding of why people choose to leave the church and why I have chosen to stay. People suddenly learn that multiple accounts of the first vision were given over time, and each account provides different details. The story of the first vision wasn't even recorded by Joseph Smith until 12 years after it was claimed to have happened. They learned that Joseph Smith had a long history of magic and treasure hunting. They learned that the Book of Mormon shows strong signs of plagiarism in certain aspects. Many of the ideas, phrases, names, and places contained in the Book of Mormon are also contained in popular books and documents from the 1800s that Joseph Smith could have easily had access to. They learned that Joseph Smith made false prophecies as well as false claims about some of his translations. They learned that many doctrines, policies, and scriptures have been changed and removed from the church over time. The most prominent of these being the strange and almost disturbing doctrines of the blood atonement and Adam God theory, both taught by Brigham Young. They also learned that many major church policy changes and revelations came at times when political restraints were placed on the church. They learned that according to some historical records, Brigham Young became prejudiced towards blacks. And this causes many to wonder if the priesthood ban was a decision based on revelation or racism. They learned the truth about polygamy, the difficult, confusing, and somewhat devastating history of polygamy. The one aspect of church history I'm not sure I will ever understand in this life. They learned that Joseph was sealed to multiple women before he was sealed to his own wife Emma. They learned that Joseph sent men away on missions and then married their wives while they were gone. They learned that Joseph pressured girls as young as 14 to marry him. They learned that Joseph began practicing polygamy in secret before telling his wife or anyone else. They learned that Joseph Smith did not completely practice polygamy according to the guidelines revealed in Doctrine and Covenants 132. And they learned that the church continued to practice polygamy even after they told church members as well as the US government that they had stopped. Now I know this can be extremely overwhelming, and I've felt it before. But the purpose of this video is not to destroy anyone's faith, it's to focus and refine our faith. There's an interesting lesson found in one of Christ's parables. Don't you think the lost sheep probably lived with the flock before it left? It was raised by the flock. But for one reason or another, it got lost. And while the other 99 sheep let it go and most likely made up reasons for why it left, it was the shepherd that took the time and effort to understand where the sheep was, where it had been, and why it had left. Are we sheep or shepherds? We are living in the fullness of times. Knowledge of all topics from all sources is available to all viewers. And I think it's time we embrace all of our history. The good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly. Because Adam fell that men might be. And here we are as humans, being. We fall, we feel, we live, we understand, and through all this we become. All men fall. Prophets fall, I fall, and you fall. But Christ has given us the ability to rise again. And if we don't truly believe that, if we don't truly believe that prophets can fall and get back up just like we can, then we don't truly believe in the doctrine of the atonement. For a just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again. What would mortality look like if the Book of Mormon was so flawless and was supported by so much historical evidence that no arguments could be made against it? What if Joseph Smith was so perfect in his statements, actions, and prophecies that no one could ever question his prophetic calling? And what if the church's doctrine and policies remained so pure and so untainted over time that no one could ever question their source? Well, if this were the case, our beliefs would be created by historical evidence rather than godly influence. It becomes so hard for people to continue believing when they find so much evidence against the church, but very little for it. But what we often forget is that where there is evidence, there is no room for faith. But where there is no evidence, we rely on faith. And faith is the foundation of Christianity. I don't know that the church is true. I just believe it's true. I just have faith. There is simply a substance within me that grows each and every time I think, speak, and act in Christ. I am yet to come across anything in history that definitely proves the church is false. There are still reasons to believe. And as long as history allows for even the slightest possibility that it could be true, I will trust in my faith. I've done the very best I can to understand why some of my friends and family have left the church. And now, I invite you to be more empathetic towards them and to not judge them. And I invite you to listen to them and validate their thoughts and understand what they've been through. I invite you to do for them what Jesus does for us every day. I believe in Christ, and He is perfect because He understands us. So maybe it's time we spend a little bit more time understanding each other.